Hello and welcome to No Prize Podcast. I am your host, the Professor Bud Young, and with me, as always, is Lucas. How are you, Lucas?
Ahoy, 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 ahoy. EAGLES. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Oh boy, here we go.
Trying to represent, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Can't wait for football season. I can't wait to see what the Patriots look like this year. Hey man, it's gonna be so different from the like half of my life, because for the last 20 years I've had Brady and Belichick, and now who do we got? I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Well, what's even more interesting is this time I was like, you know what? I have enough time to watch a game. I mean, to actually go to a game, and I was like, wait, I still can't go to a game because guess what? No fans allowed. So,
Yeah.
oh my goodness. Well, at least I can sit home and watch my good old comics or read my good old comics for the ones that are good. So we're gonna freaking go through those. My
Well,
goodness.
we'll see. We can hope for good comics, and then we'll see what reality we get.
And then be unpleasantly freaking let down again. So, but that's just my opinion. So let's get into it.
Yeah, go ahead. So we're gonna do the first one we're gonna do is Wraith, which is the Web of Venom one shot that came out this week. Now this is a long time coming, right? Because we saw like a kind of like a premonition of this in a Venom book a few months ago, right? With the Wraith, and he's appeared in Guardians of the Galaxy, and they're tying him into this web of Venom with the whole null thing that we've talked about, I guess, ad nauseum on our podcast for the last year or two, where the storyline has been moving slowly and inexorably towards whatever Donny Cates has planned for this. So why don't you tell us about Wraith?
Absolutely. So this is supposed to be part of the upperness downess of Donny Cates as a writer. Art by Joey Villanova. Color art done by Dean White, and VC's Clayton Cowles as the letterer. So just like you said, but man, freaking, they've been trying to bring a whole bunch of stuff and actually make it make sense, right? And that's concerning the darkness, right? The darkness inside the Marvel Comics is a huge freaking deal. You can find it everywhere. You can find it in Fantastic Four and the X-Men and Wolverine and Spider-Man and Venom. Everywhere you look, there's this thing called the darkness or the void or the black winter. They're trying to bring it all together to make sense. Even the Chaos King, there's all types of stuff. So this was supposed to be a book where they start to unravel it and freaking bring it together. And did they succeed on it? Well, sort of, kinda. They kind of unraveled it, and then they just moved on to a freaking whole nother other concept. So Wraith, once again, this is a character that I've been touting for like the last 4 to 5 months. His first appearance was all the way back in Annihilation Conquest #1, and then he encountered the symbiotes, but they were called the Exxon and Wraith #2, if you guys want to pick those up. And what the Exxon do is they trap your soul, and then they freaking just take over your whole body. Well, after a while, freaking Wraith gets it in his head that Null, who is the god of the Exxon, it's his fault that this all happened, so he wants to go find him and kill him, and that's what this whole book is about. He's searching for him. He made a whole bunch of drug deals to get the information to find out where he is, and he finally finds him. So there's a few panels of Easter eggs of what's going on. So it first builds on where Wraith came from. It came from the Kree Empire. He and his father were freaking shunned away. They had to freaking go hide. The Kree Empire eventually found him, and they killed his mother and his father. His father shot him off just like Superman to a different freaking planet, and from there, he was actually trapped by these parasitic entities. They ripped his soul out from him, and they freaking entered the symbiotes into him. And then from there on, he was the Nameless, the Pale Rider, the so and so, and from on, he was just a bad mother effer from here on out, with these symbiote weapons. So at some point he decides, and that was in Guardians of the Galaxy #3. He realizes, hey, freaking, the guy that I really want to hunt down is freaking Null. So he freaking goes looking for him. And here, the information leads him to his father's laboratory, where we start to see some of the same symbols that we've been seeing in some of the Web of Carnage stuff, like that weird squirrely thing that we've been seeing on some of the symbiotes. We see that, and we also see some other symbiotes, like these 6 little dots. We haven't been explaining that yet, but already all the speculators are on fire, freaking trying to figure out what it is. They've been going back for like 30 years, 40 years worth of comics, trying to figure out what this freaking means. And all they came up with a whole bunch of zero, right? So good on Donny Cates for letting them freaking speculate, but not letting the horse get before the carriage. So all the information goes back. They explain what happened with his father, just in case you don't want to go back. Say, hey, his father built this light source. He did something with the light source. Kree got jealous of him. They tried to kill him off. And then another part is, he's got this teleport device, and he finally figures out where Null is. So he teleports himself to Klithar, which is a prison for Null, and he comes face to face with Null, right? And for some reason, he thinks that he could just take Null on. And Null's like, I don't even know who you are. Just go away. He was like, no, I'm going to kill you right now. So Null's just like, okay, well, fine. He grabs him by the freaking neck and just rips the symbiote Exelon away from him. So now Wraith no longer has the symbiote power. He no longer has Exelon as part of him. And he just leaves him out in space to die, right? Doesn't care anything about him, just leaves him out in space to die. So from there, all of a sudden, you have this big old light just comes through, washes over him, and with that big old light source, he's able to transport himself to Eddie Brock. Eddie Brock, who was there getting a hot dog with his freaking son, Dylan, right? So what that means is that all these events happen way before the current Venom series is currently happening, because the current Venom series has Eddie and Dylan in a totally other different universe. And what does Wraith do when he freaking encounters Eddie? He's butt naked now. He's a butt naked man in the freaking middle of the freaking street. What does he do? He says, hey, you need to know that you're not alone and that the God of Light is coming. And then he freaking disappears in the freaking thin air, and then that's it. Fiend. So, based on that story, I gotta say, man, I'm kind of disappointed. I expected more. I expected more of an explanation, because for all I'm concerned with, and I'm not going to guesstimate, is that Wraith is dead. Wraith was supposed to be, he's supposed to be a big guy from now on. They've been hyping him up for at least a year now. And all of a sudden, this happens, he meets Null, and then he's freaking dead. The art is fine, right? It's appropriate, right? But it's not anything amazing. I was expecting a lot more answers out of this. Right now, I mean, this is a freaking what's our worst rating right now that we got?
Clobber? Are you clobbering it?
It's a clobber. It's an absolute freaking clobber for me, because you set this up. You set this book up to be something. You even had these weird variants. It was like a 1 in 50 for this, and even the variant was kind of ugly. I'm sorry, Mr. Gists. And I'll let you freaking go into, and then I'll fucking grab my copy. But yeah, it's an absolute clobber. So what did you think, bud?
So I'm not going to clobber it, right? It is a huge leap for me, because when we got this book, I was expecting some answers, which we got some answers, but this is way more of a beginning than an end, right? So it is the end for the Wraith, but they turn this Wraith character from what you thought was going to be an important part of this Null storyline, and just basically turned him into kind of like the harbinger of what's to come. So basically they turned him into, and if you look at the last page when he fades into nothingness and actually becomes a Wraith, he kind of Yoda'd the whole thing, right? Like there is another kind of, there's a god of light to go against the god of dark. And obviously what we're supposed to believe is that Eddie Brock is going to become probably the avatar of that god of light, and go up against Null, because why else would you be telling this story, right? So the story about Wraith, and I'm going to get into my big issue with the book, and it was best said by Jerry Conway. Well, and this is not, he wasn't reviewing any Marvel book, so to speak, but when I was reading, and I never go through Twitter, precursor, I never go through Twitter, and I just found this because a friend of mine retweeted it. But I read it and I was like, this is awesome, because this really kind of, and of course Jerry Conway, being a professional writer, puts everything in way better perspective than I could possibly do it. So I'm just going to read you this tweet, and whether you're not you agree with me, Lucas, we can talk about it after. So this is this series of tweets. So Jerry Conway says, on a superhero comics related note, free of political controversy, I've been thinking about the modern trope of first-person captions replacing thought balloons, and how that may undermine the narrative immediacy of story. Bear with me. Sometime in the last couple of decades, comic book writers and editors seem to have made a collective aesthetic decision to abandon thought balloons in favor of first-person captions. At first glance, these seem to be equal in narrative effect, but they aren't. A thought balloon takes place within the narrative action because of its visual similarity to a speech balloon. The reader unconsciously associates the thought with the visual action, interpreting thought and action as happening simultaneously. A first-person caption, however, takes place outside the narrative action. Its visual association is with other time and place setting captions, as well as explanatory editorial intrusion captions. The reader experiences such captions as commentary. Many writers use first-person captions for exposition, emotional revelation, and ironic foreshadowing, but inherent in all of these uses is the implication that regardless of verb tense, the first-person caption is outside the action being portrayed. Unlike a thought balloon, which represents an internal monologue, the first-person caption implies an external monologue. The character is speaking to the reader, not to themselves. My name is Barry Allen. It's something you don't think. It's something you say. And that brings us to the narrative problem this new trope creates. Inherent in any first-person narrative, Sunset Boulevard being the exception that proves the rule, is the implication we're hearing about events that have already occurred. In most novels or short stories where the protagonist is typically not expected to be facing death at any moment, first-person narration presents no problem for readers' emotional investment. But thrillers and suspense novels are a different story. Obviously, there are exceptions, and some writers use first person to great effect, often by qualifying the narration in some way, implying it may not be complete or that it's written contemporaneously, a diary, etc. But the majority of thrillers are third-person narratives. In superhero comics, however, where the conceit is that heroes are embroiled in life and death conflict, a narrative device like first-person captions, which informs the reader subconsciously that the hero has survived to tell their story, seems unwise. This may be why I personally find many current superhero stories somewhat distant and, frankly, boring. We all know the heroes will survive to fight another day, but first-person narration makes that implicit story trope explicit. It reduces the stakes by stating the outcome. I understand the aesthetic appeal of first-person captions versus thought balloons. I understand the usefulness of a narrative tool that eases exposition and allows for ironic foreshadowing, but those benefits come at a cost I doubt most writers even consider. First-person narration undercuts narrative jeopardy. Maybe writers should consider bringing back the thought balloon or find another way to impart exposition and reveal a character's internal emotional state or inner monologue. It's a thought. So, I mean, that's a lot to unpack. It's a really long tweet, but it really kind of it spoke to me because I've had that I was kind of at war with myself over this for a long time anyway, because I don't like it when the writers use the caption as a way to kind of tell you the story instead of you actually reading like what the hero is going through. Now, but while reading that, when he did say it kind of lowers the stakes, well, we're watching the Wraith tell you this story and then he dies at the end anyway. So it's an interesting kind of contradiction of the tweet, but it kind of goes with it, right? With the boring kind of distant, right? Like I kind of feel like the story is being told to me and that I'm not part of the story. When you read older Marvels and Silver Age comics, you kind of actually feel like you're part of the story because you're in Peter Parker's head when he's going through the inner monologue of what's going on in his life. Right. You don't feel that anymore. And that's I do think that's a disconnect and part of maybe the fault of storytellers in Marvel, and not just Marvel, DC, because they don't use thought balloons anymore either. But that I feel like they could have maybe told a lot more of the story if we got more of the Wraith's point of view as opposed to he's telling us what happened from like the point of history, like it already happened. So so as far as that goes, the rest of my the story is it services what the next step of the story is going to be. So it's a bit of a stretch. I don't buy Eddie Brock as being the hero that's going to save the universe from this dark god. So they're gonna have to go a long way to prove to me that he is that person. But the interesting thing to me is it looks like Null created the Clintar. It was not his first attempt at creating a parasitic organism, because that's what the Wraith, the Exodar, or whatever they call it, that was a failed experiment, he said. So it looks like the Clintar might have been like the second attempt or third attempt even. So that was one of the revelations for me, was Wraith is very much a prototype of Venom. And that he, I don't like the thing that he kind of turned into Yoda at the end and just kind of faded away, and then that's it. But so yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch. I do think it was probably one of the stronger attempts. And I think I panned Donny Cates on the last podcast, but this is, I think, a stronger attempt for him, and it seems to me like this was a story that he wanted to tell. So I mean, I get that effort out of it, and I love the fact that it was really no contest, right? You said like Wraith was going to take on Null, and Null was just like, yeah, he's going to rip the parasite right out of you. Okay, and that was the end. It wasn't even a fight, so. Yeah. it was interesting.
Yeah, so. Like he shoots his gun and he misses, and then instead of just saying, "Okay, oh crap, well he's gonna leave me alone," instead of just trying to walk away, he's like, "No, come back here, you."
And here's one thing that I noticed was he took the parasitic, the Exolar that were in Wraith, and he absorbed them into his sword, or he created a sword out of it.
Exactly.
So is that going to tie into Sword of X?
Well, didn't you say? So that's one of the interesting things, right? Because that is the Necro Sword, right? Okay, we don't know. So we don't know exactly where the Necro Sword. We know where the Necro Sword originally came from. The Necro Sword came from him trying to cut and digging his soul into a celestial, and what he pulled out was this just goo, right? And then later on, he goes into his little workshop and talking about Null, and he just hammers that into a freaking sword, and then he goes to fight, right? He goes to fight against the God of Light, right? And if you don't believe me, go back to Venom number 4, and it actually talks about him. He talks about, hey, he went against the God of Light, and then people were speculating, well, maybe it's Thor. No, it's not Thor, because after he talks about fighting with the God of Light, he talks about that Thor reeked of the light. So that reek means that that Thor is actually related to somebody that is the God of Light. So I've actually talked about this a lot in my speculation, is that I think the God of Light, and this is crazy speculation, and it's only because this is the way freaking Case is leading us so far, is that, and the God of Light may have originally been related to Thor. It might have been his great grandfather or his grandfather or something like that, which just showed up in like Valkyrie or something like that. And the reason why I say that is because in Thor God of Thunder number 6, there was a guy that Null was fighting and stabbed him freaking through the heart that stopped him cold, and that was Thor's great grandfather or something like that, or maybe his grandfather or something like that, and they just freaking fell over, boom. And then from there, Gore took the Necro Sword away from him, and that became something totally else. So there's a lot of speculation of what this could be. People thinking it could be Sentry, could be Franklin Richards and everything. But from what I saw here, it could either be Eddie, like you said, that could be that would make sense to me, or it might be Wraith himself, right? Because Wraith supposedly never can't die, or it could be the grandfather of Thor. And I've seen numerous things that call him the God of Light. So there's all types of possibilities right now.
Well, so, and I don't, if you look at the last panel of the page when Wraith goes up in smoke, pretty much, he does leave the God of Light symbol on the ground as he disappears. So I think what that means is now, like from before, when he was bathed with the light in the I guess the God of Light symbol, if that's what we're going to call it. So he's now become an agent of the God of Light now. So so he's gone from being a tool of Null to now being a tool of this new character, right. I guess. Right. So who knows? Maybe we haven't seen the last of Wraith, but my guess is he's appeared so sporadically that this might just be the one shot and he's done, and now we just have to focus on the Venom story from now on. But yeah, I mean, this was a bit of a stretch, but it did move the story of Null, which I've been bitching upon for months now, for them to kind of let's wrap this
up.
Get
on with it. Get on with it.
Yeah. So this is them getting on with it, and so that's for that reason I'm not clobbering it. The art, like you said, the artwork was good. Nothing special, but it did harken back to the Wraith miniseries. The art was very similar, and I can't remember who the heck drew that, but it's not this guy.
Yeah. The other thing that I would think of that would make it all about Wraith is the fact that his father was building some type of light source, or had acquired somehow some type of light source. Now, when he sent them off, right, to get him away from the disaster that was happening to him and the family, they never really explained what happened to that light source, right? Because they show it's like this little freaking egg, right, and nobody says where it went, right? So maybe I'm thinking that he hit it with Wraith at the time. And then when he goes into the Exoteric Latitude, which is where the Exxon were, the Nameless that were there took the light away from him, and by taking the light away from him, which was his soul, that allows the symbiote from the Exxon to enter into Wraith. But now that the Wraith has been removed from him, his soul is out there somewhere. We just don't know where that is. So that is my crazy speculation theory that I think would be cool if Dick Case was able to pull that together.
All right. So
and then this is the freaking 1 to 50 that for some reason that they felt that deserved. This is by Just that they felt was out there. So I know a lot of speculators that are out there might be a little pissed at what's going on in this book right now. So Donny Cates, man, you better fix this. You gotta fix it. So you right now. You're looking real suspect of me right now. All right, so what do we got next?
All right, so let's take a quick break, and then when we get back, we'll wrap up Empyre for the people.
Yay!
And we're back. Oh wait, no, you can take a slug off that. I came back too soon. Lucas was enjoying his. What are you drinking? Gin and juice or something? What is that?
It is Saturday morning, so I'm enjoying my freaking tequila. Hey, we don't until they give us some money. We'll just hold it. It's tequila, you know. I mean, I love this particular tequila, you know, and if they would have holler at us, you know, actually let me show the label, then they can holler at us. But until that magical day, I don't ride for free. You know what I mean?
Well, we would love to be sponsored by any alcohol that would like to.
Oh yeah, just as long as it doesn't kill my liver. You know? I've been drinking since freaking 1 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, so just as long as it doesn't kill my liver, and I can freaking drink it all night, I'll be great. I'll be good. So what are we reviewing next?
All right, so we're gonna wrap up Empyre. We had 2 Aftermath books come out this week, so we'll kind of go through the numbers with there. We got the Avengers Aftermath and the Fantastic Four. So the Empyre storyline was told from 2 different perspectives. You had the Avengers side of things and the Fantastic Four side of things. The Fantastic Four side of things very much so dealt with the Kree and the Skrull alliance, and you had the Avengers side of things, which dealt with the Katati, which is weird because on the Aftermath Avengers issues, it very much deals with the Kree Skrull alliance. The Katati has been defeated, which, I mean, come on, everybody knew that was going to happen, and this basically is supposed to wrap up the plot threads, if whatever wasn't wrapped up. So, you know, basically the Teddy's grandmother, the Empress of the Skrull throne world, or the Empress's mom, because it was the Empress that died when Galactus ate the Skrull planet.
Right, the Skrull version of Karen. Yep, go ahead.
Yes. The grandmother. So the grandmother, they actually tell the story here in the first part of the book, where the grandmother realizes that the Skrull throne world is going to get eaten, but the Queen Anel has to stay and, you know, pretty much be destroyed with the planet and become a martyr. But the grandmother can, you know, she teleported away and was able to save herself. And eventually, that ends up turning into the fact that she was masquerading as Tanelf the Pursuer, and not just in this story. Apparently, Tanelf the Pursuer, in every appearance that she's been, has always been this Empress masquerading as a Skrull. So that was kind of a revelation on that. And you know what? I don't really mind that bit of retconning because she's a very, very minor character. So,
sure. Yeah.
So to me, this book is very much explaining her motivations and her story throughout, because she just was kind of like a paint by numbers villain in this, and now she is the person in the Iron Mask, now that Teddy has freed himself and they've won the war. And the wrap up here of the aftermath. Mainly is the wedding. They actually have a full on wedding for Teddy and Billy, to kind of reaffirm their love. Now before this storyline started, they kind of got married in Vegas and did like the whole chapel thing.
Yeah.
But here, they do a Kree, Skrull, Avengers, Fantastic Four. Pretty much, they pull out all the stops and have an official wedding. Billy becomes Teddy's consort and high wizard of the Alliance, and it's a big pomp and circumstance thing. And inside that wedding, where they do a couple of wrap up things, and I'm just gonna get into a couple of little problems that end up cropping up in the story for me. Maybe not for you, but for me, it seemed like there was a bit of an opportunity lost and a kind of a dropping of the ball here. And I started reviewing this book without giving credit to the writer and stuff. So Al Ewing wrote this, and this book was a team up kind of book. So Al Ewing took care of the Avengers side of things, and Dan Slott took care of the FF kind of things. So here's Al Ewing writing the Avengers Aftermath with art by Valerio Schiti, and art colors by Marty Garcia, letters by VC's to Ariana Mayer, and lots of variant covers. But this one's by Jim Chung. So anyway, this on Al Ewing's kind of thing, and this is where I kind of feel like, due to COVID, there were parts of this story that didn't get told. Okay. Yeah. And so these aftermath books are going to touch on some of the stuff that we don't know. But one of the things that got left to the wayside and didn't even have kind of a perspective on the storyline is the Young Avengers, right? Yeah. The Young Avengers or the West Coast Avengers, which was the last year's. So these are basically all the I don't want to say like diverse characters that they introduced over the last several years, with Patriot and Kate Bishop and Stature, and then on the West Coast Avengers side you have America, and several. There's a shot in this book towards the end where they show all the Young Avengers, and in one panel, and I think you even messaged me and was like, I don't even know who half these people are.
Yeah.
So this is the ball that dropped, and that's what you when you said that to me, I was like, why don't we know who most of these characters are? I mean, I do, but the casual fan isn't going to know these characters. And the book, I mean, Teddy was the main character in this book, and he was a member of the Young Avengers. The Young Avengers are nowhere to be seen in this entire crossover, other than Billy, right? Other than Wiccan. There's none of them even appear. Not even in the Avengers crossovers. It's just the main Avengers teams. There's no, you get no White Tiger, no Prodigy, or either the Powerhouse, not Powerhouse, Power Man, right? All of those characters that had appeared in the last couple of years in West Coast Avengers. America had her own book. The Young Avengers was relaunched a couple of years ago that lasted for a little bit. None of these characters that are important to Teddy and Billy's story, right? Because, and let's face it, them getting married is a huge thing, right?
Maybe.
No, I mean,
it registers under yes, 2020, get over it. That's where it registers for me. To Marvel, it's a big deal for me, but for me, it's like,
okay. For the characters, maybe not for the fans.
You didn't build. So once again, I know people hate me talking about manga, but there's a romantic buildup that's a part of the journey and character development that I just haven't been there for with where the Hulkling and his new husband, right? I forget the name of
Hmm.
the guy. All right, Wicked. Yep.
Yeah.
So I haven't been along for that ride, right? You kind of just threw me in, and I get it that they were dating, whatever, but all of a sudden you threw me into this wedding, and it happened that I don't care. And you know why? And you know how I know that this is really bad is because I've seen plenty enough of homosexual content, and I've seen plenty of really great stuff out there that really goes into the romance and freaking pulls you along so that you don't even see genders. And this wasn't it. This makes me freaking hate this even more because they just threw me at it, and there's nothing to it. And I don't want to interrupt your segment and everything, but there was actually two covers, or maybe there might have been a few covers, but there was actually a surprise cover to it, right? And it just shows up, and it's the same shot, right? One shot is the superheroes in costume, and then the other one is everybody out of costume in tuxedos and everything. And the two groom and grooms, they're freaking kissing, and I'm like, oh, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me that I just don't care about this and I just don't feel it? And then I was like, no, no, it's just terrible writing, right? So this is maybe one of those times that it might have been better if they turned it over to somebody with a little bit more experience in writing, um, gay romance, right?
Hmm.
To make me actually care about these characters and care about that and care about the relationship development when it comes to this whole thing. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, but I didn't mean to interrupt your whole
No,
thing.
well, you kind of open a can of worms there, and that's the thing is Marvel has always made an attempt to be inclusive. Not whether or not they're successful at that is up to debate, but they've always tried, right? So I never not give them credit for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I'm giving them credit for trying. It's
Yeah,
just
it's just a thing that I do feel like they try maybe a little too hard sometimes to be all inclusive. In I think years ago, this is before you were on this podcast, we talked about forced diversity as opposed to an actual organic type storytelling.
sure.
And one of the I'll throw out Iceman being gay as probably like one of those biggest of the forced retcon diversity type
Right.
tropes I
So
want.
all right. So let me jump in on that. Right. There was I when it comes to Iceman, right? Being
Hmm.
gay and everything, it was a little bit of a shock. Like, okay, where the fuck have I been?
Well, they try to
Um,
make you realize that he's always been gay, but I don't buy
yeah.
that.
Um, but then there has maybe been one issue where they got it right? And they made me actually go, okay, I got you. I see where the issue comes from, and I see that they actually are trying, and it makes sense, right? And it was the issue when he starts talking to his parents, and he starts talking about the emotion he feels about having to hide stuff from them, and from having to live another life, and that he wants slowly, he doesn't want to live that life and not have his parents and everything. And once again, this is probably like a year and a half ago, and that hit home for me, right? That was like, oh right, they get it. They get it. And do you know what they did the next issue? They totally forget all about that. They dropped the parents. We never see the parents again, and that was it. Finite, gun, fuck, excuse me, forget it all, right? So that was a little bit of disappointment. It's like if you're going to freaking do this stuff and you're gonna make that a big story plot, follow through. Give me 4 or 5 issues where you attack that problem head on, right? Because you're not just what who you are is not just what you can do. It is the sum of your experiences and your problems and how you deal with them, right? And they only did with one half of a story of one half of an issue, probably even less, to deal with that, right? And that's why I'm still not buying this whole Iceman as gay thing, even though he may be. I mean, he is, but I would like them to dig more and come with a real reality freaking thing to it. Um,
Hmm.
they just don't have that yet, right? And in fact, you mentioned America Chavez, right? In fact, I was talking about this with some of the speculation guys last night about this. You know why they canceled her freaking issue so quick is because it's a terrible freaking comic. It was a terrible freaking comic, right?
Yeah.
Gabby
Well,
Rivera, who I love as a writer, came up with a pile of dung that was so below her stature, so below her ability, that nobody, because she was supposed to flesh out a character, a Latina lesbian character, and we got none of it. We got no character development until the second to last issue, right?
yeah. I mean that's
Yeah.
and the one thing that I like about Teddy and Billy is that they've when they were introduced, and this was like 15 years ago, they were gay in issue 1, right? So their first appearance, you knew they were a gay couple, and now 15 years later, they get their moment in the sun, their moment of shine. But for many years they've been kind of relegated as side characters. Wiccan has appeared in more books. He's been in more teams than Beast at this point. He's been used all over. Um, I like the characters. I loved the Young Avengers characters, and I love the fact that they're the diversity. And that was when I think that when Marvel first really kind of made it their mission to be all inclusive and kind of shine a light on what they weren't really, and kind of try to fix that. Um, these are characters that they've introduced. Some of them are, I mean, obviously what they were,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
but a lot of the characters really kind of grew and organically have remained true to what they were when they introduced. And Billy and Teddy, I really kind of look at that as being like almost like the template relationship kind of lesson for everybody, that reads comics should follow. But a lot of these, like you said, like America, I like the character when she was first introduced, but you're right, her series was terrible. Um, but the,
No.
but a lot of the characters that were getting these books that get canceled by issue 5
Yeah.
are just try to find an audience.
Yeah.
But
Well, here's a question for you. That one panel that has it's like a basic shot of like everybody.
it's almost like the Last Supper, right?
Yeah. To the far right there, it looks like an African American female in blue hair. I'll give you a
Yeah.
second to scroll to it. Do you know who that is?
Um, you know, I I I'm trying to find out who everyone is, because there's a couple of them that I'm not sure. She was on the West Coast Avengers team
Uh,
last year,
yeah,
and
yeah,
she was the sister,
yeah.
and
Right.
she's metal, right?
And she was no, what she was actually dating America Chavez.
Yes,
Yes, I
yes.
forgot what her
So
name was. Okay, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I forget what her name is too, but you know what? That's Marvel's fault. you know, that's Marvel's fault that we don't know who these characters are. They've appeared in a few issues here and there, and then they kind of throw them away. So,
So now, so you know what? Now I'm disappointed that Shark Boy isn't in here.
Shark
Remember?
Boy.
Yeah, there was a little. It's not Shark Boy, little Shark Baby.
Oh,
There's a little Shark Baby in
the
West
one
Coast
in it's
Avengers.
in. Oh, that's the one in Deadpool. Oh, Gwenpool. So yeah, Gwenpool's not in this shot. She should.
First he was in West Coast Avengers, right? And
Yeah,
then he made it to Gwenpool, and he's not here. So, um,
I think he's in Deadpool now.
is he? That actually would make sense. What's his name, like Marvin or something like that?
I don't know. They actually made an
And
action figure with the little pet shark.
oh, I might have to buy that.
Yeah,
And then Squirrel Girl's in here, even though her series was canceled. So this
she's
is
in.
basically
Yeah,
yeah. So basically, this is like a refuge for throwing away characters that don't have
it's
any other home right now.
it's and and we could talk about this. We can continue to talk about this. Maybe on the next podcast, we could talk about all the characters they've introduced in the last 10 years that they're underusing, perhaps. But let's just wrap up, and because we have like 5 minutes to talk about Aftermath Fantastic Four. So the wrap up on this story is you see Super Skrull and Captain Glory kind of get cast out. And then Captain Glory refuses to accept his exile from the Empire and decides to take his life sentence in prison. And then when they fast forward to the future and you see Captain Glory's dead body, it looks like standing over that, defeating the Skrull Kree Empire is Agent Brand, who earlier in this issue had a fallout with Captain Marvel over the fact that they didn't even tell her about the invasion of the Katati, and Brand being the Alpha Flight leader. And Alpha Flight for the last several years in Captain Marvel has been the protection for Earth against outer space threats. And I did kind of wonder cursorily throughout this crossover, where the heck is Alpha Flight, because they're supposed to be protecting Earth.
Right.
And here they just kind of throw it away. Brand comes in, she slaps Captain Marvel in the face and then quits Alpha Flight. And now here in the last page, she shows up to attack the Kree Skrull. Pretty much looks like she just runs right through them. But there's several characters in the back in shadow that you don't recognize. The only one you recognize is the one immediately behind her. And do you know which character that is, Lucas? I'm going to quiz you.
No clue, man. I tried to identify earlier. Maybe it was too freaking to never read it, but I couldn't identify them. Nope.
That is the former Avenger Manifold, who he is from Wakanda, and he was also in the Black Panther storyline and was part of actually I think that's it. He was in Avengers, and then he showed up in Black Panther a few times.
Okay.
And now he's working for Agent Brand, which is surprising, which makes me wonder if there were other Avengers working there with him. I'm trying to think. It looks like there's a guy with swords in the back and a couple of other people, but who knows? That seems interesting, except I really hate Aftermath issues that have the kind of cliffhanger ending on, this is going to be our next big crossover next year. Tune in April when we come out. And that's basically what this is. This is like, okay, we'll see. But let's get into Empyre Fallout Fantastic Four really quickly, and I'm just going to hit on the highlights of this one real quick, and then let you jump in and see if there's anything you want to add. But this is Dan Slott is writing this one with Sean Izaakse as the artist, and Marcio Menes on colors, with Joe Caramagna lettering, and lots of different covers on this one. And this wraps up the storyline from the kind of the Katati side of things, and the wrap up of the issue of the Kree and Skrull little kids that have been running around in the Fantastic Four. So it appears, now from the end of Empyre, those Kree and Skrull little kids that were bred from birth to kind of be the embodiments of the war, right? So you have a Kree and the Skrull, and they were fighting in this gladiatorial arena run by the Profiteer, and they were kind of bred genetically to kill each other. And throughout the crossover and the Fantastic Four side of things, these two characters come under the protection of the Fantastic Four, and I guess you want to call them the Fantastic Four. It's kind of Spider-Man and Wolverine and Fantastic Four Girls, exactly. and Powerhouse and Franklin and Valeria, really. So the wrap up for them is they are now become part of the Fantastic Four family and are adopted or I guess
Yes.
assigned as foster kids to the Thing and Alicia Masters, which
But
yes, go
be
ahead.
truthful now. Be truthful now. You didn't freaking tear up.
I did not.
You cold-hearted. You cold-hearted MF. You
So no.
cold-hearted member. I was glad I was in my basement alone, man. Oh my god, it's so powerful. All right.
No, so the thing, so I don't, having kids in a comic book really kind of limits your storytelling abilities. And I'm trying to, I had a conversation with Chris Claremont one time, and I hate to name drop, but I interviewed him a few years ago, and we had a long, part of the conversation was about Kitty Pryde and writing teenage characters, and kind of really when you age them, kind of you run out of storytelling opportunity, right? So you either have to keep them that age, or you have to age them into adulthood, like they did with Peter Parker and Johnny Storm, who both started as high school kids, and then now they're kind of frozen in their mid 30s, right? I mean, late 20s, early 30s. So that's when they introduce these kids, and you've already seen that Franklin and Valeria, that 5 years that they were missing, they've aged them, right? So now you have two new kids. And the only thing I can think of is that these guys are going to be like the new Power Pack, right? They're going to have the Kree and the Skrull, and they're going to have Franklin and Valeria, and they're going to have a new Power Pack. That it has to be the next step. So, and then of course you have the Thing as the dad of the team, right?
Yeah.
Come on, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's a setup.
I don't know what to think, man. Freaking. So, once again, when you have kids, there is the manga trend of you have kids so that you can show character development, right? You just pointed out that they had Franklin and his sister, Valeria, and then they all of a sudden just aged them
Mm-hmm.
out of nowhere.
Well,
Why?
Franklin. If you were talking real time, Franklin is going to be 55 years old by now. So let's.
Right, it's still a douchebag, so he never learned anything. Yeah, we were talking about him and his whole attachment to the god of light and everything. So but there was no reason to, because first she started talking about how Valeria, she's the smartest person in the world. She was even smarter than Moon Girl. Got it. Let leave me there, right? So we could explore the fact that she's even smarter than her father and everything. But instead of doing that, all of a sudden she's driving, and then all of a sudden she's in full on freaking fighting freaking war, an intergalactic war and everything. So I don't get that. Now you got these freaking two kids. Marvel, telling you, I like the kids. Keep them kids. Keep them there. Stay there for at least another 10 years. I don't care what you got to do. Stay there. Don't move it. That's freaking show character development, because the little one kid, the little badass kid who just wants to fight, and when you're saying I'm your parent, he's like, yeah, you're my commanding officer, and I'll obey. Yeah, I like that, right? Stay there. Don't move anywhere. Just show me all the little social awkwardness, and I'll be fine.
So that's pretty much the wrap up on this, right? So that's the only major thing. Well, there is one other major thing which had absolutely nothing to do with the Empyre crossover as a whole. Is the storyline. So the story, we're going to get back into the telling the story with captions again. So the story, this is told to you from the perspective of the unseen being the Watcher character that Nick Fury is, right? And I don't know if you remember this from years ago, where Nick Fury became the new Watcher with the Watcher's eye, and where he used to have his eye patch. So we haven't seen him in years, and he shows up to tell you the story of the Aftermath issue because it happens on the moon, right? So the big major development at the end of this book is the rebirth of the Watcher.
Yeah.
Who they murdered probably like 10 years ago, and
original sin.
literally no one has missed. Have you missed the Watcher?
Nope.
I haven't. And in fact, they missed him so much that you haven't seen Nick Fury in years either. So they show him, he shows up, and then out of his eye blasts the rebirth of
Uatu.
And I really don't know. Like, there's nothing saying like why that happened or what. He just says there shall be a reckoning. And first of all, when the Watcher says there will be a reckoning, no, there won't, because he sits there and he doesn't do anything. He watches, and then he says he can't watch, and then he interferes anyway. So that's to me, that's the Watcher's thing. But why would you kind of retcon that? That kind of thing really I hate it, because all you're doing really is destroying someone else's work from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You're not moving anything forward. You're kind of moving backward by reintroducing old characters. And I know it happens all the time, and I'm kind of bitching about it just because but it just seems to me like they were like, we need a thing to set up like next year's crossover. What can we do? Oh, well, hey, we're on the moon, and we haven't used the Watcher lately. Oh wait, we killed the Watcher. Oh wait,
let's bring it back.
It's Nick Fury. Oh yeah, I remember a few years ago we did something with Nick Fury. And then that to me, that's how it comes off, right? And that's, to me, is like a throwaway, kind of almost like a false cliffhanger, right?
Yeah.
It's a cliffhanger no one cares about. No one expected it. There was no foreshadowing. It's not like you read that page and you went, oh snap, the Watcher's back.
Right. Exactly. Nobody.
No one cares.
Nobody asked for this whatsoever,
Right.
man. Because what led into it, you might have missed this point, is that there's this sword, right? Once again, this whole Extra Swords event is supposed to be coming along, right? And then everybody's trying to figure out where the sword came from, right? Because the Quadi had it, and everybody's trying to figure out where it came from. And then the unseen, he's like, "Oh, I know where it came from." Breaks apart. Next thing you know, Watu shows up. Sorry, doesn't make any sense. And you made it so obscure in its presentation that I don't even care. I didn't care before, and I don't care about it now, right? So, and you're gonna ask people $4 for this crap next time around.
So the one last thing that I'm gonna talk about this book. Thor creates a new planet for the Katati to be exiled to, and apparently this was supposed to be one of the crossover issues that didn't come out, right? There was supposed to be an Empyre Thor 3-issue miniseries where apparently Thor was supposed to be like go out and create a new livable planet for the Katati. So they do a couple of pages here where they reference Thor's quest, and we never saw it.
So you know what that's all about, right? Marvel, just within the last couple weeks, they decided to let loose that they're doing a Fortnite crossover.
Oh, yeah.
And guess where that planet that they all cross over in?
No.
Yes,
really?
it is.
Yeah. Bah.
So yeah, if you go back to the issue where Thor and Galactus were having their issue, they disappear off panel to somewhere. They disappear to take care of this, and then all the other stuff, and then they come back and all this other. So that's what this is all about.
All right.
I missed that, but okay.
All right. So that's gonna wrap up Empire for all of you. For so I want to say both of those issues were a bit of a stretch. I think they fall a little bit short of a Flame On for me, just based on the issues that I had and the what I want to call with the Empire, the Avengers, opportunity lost, right?
Exactly.
Because they could have used the Young Avengers and throughout that crossover, and they should have. They should have been right there on the forefront, uh, just because of Teddy being
Hmm.
the main character. They should have been involved, but they weren't,
Exactly.
and
Right.
that affected me because they should have been there. They should have been involved. And the fact that we didn't even get a crossover, and not even one on the schedule, like they weren't even supposed to have one. We were supposed to get a Squadron Supreme crossover for Empire, but not a Young Avengers crossover. So
Oh
for
my
me,
God, you're making too much sense because you know who we got instead of the West Coast Avengers, the people that they trust and everything? We got the Fantastic Four, and
yeah,
they didn't need them at all, right? Except for maybe Ben Grimm, right? Because he was the
yeah,
one that was beating up on the She-Hulk, but that whole thing didn't need to happen. So,
it's
oh,
it was there were characters missing, right? There was some obvious, if even if they did the Young Avengers instead of the actual Avengers, or maybe just started out with the Young Avengers and then had the Avengers come in and save the day at the end, that would have made
it
way
didn't
more
need that.
sense.
It didn't need to happen because the Avengers are supposed to be taking care of the whole Kenosha thing and getting ready for the King in Black to come in. So they didn't need
Well,
it.
let's not talk about continuity because we could argue
Oh,
all day about it. All right, so that's going to do it for this episode of No Prize Podcast. We will be back in 2 weeks, and maybe they'll be building up more of the Null storyline for us to talk about. So until then, stay safe, and everybody watch some football.
hey.